So with this talk of, let's say in the context, is we all love hip hop music, like us that like we all of us that are here. And I think for me, when I was younger and I was learning about hip hop, it was so important to learn about hip hop culture. Like it was this thing to be like, yeah, you need to know where everything came from. You had to be this like backpacker golden age era person where you knew the context of these lyrics when you're listening to like 93 to Infinity, if you're listening to anything that was of that era. And there's a disconnect now where like when people consume modern hip hop music, there is no need to go into the past and learn the context of it. I mean, it's so many years out. Like like kids old enough to buy cigarettes are younger than hip hop, they were born when like, I don't know, like Milkshake came out by Khalees. They can buy cigarettes and or drink. I mean, like it's a whole different world right now. So do you guys think it's important for people to understand the history of modern music, but it's important for people to know that like rock and roll came from Black culture, that hip hop came from Black culture? I mean, that's a little more obvious, but like where that came from exactly, because it wasn't like a happy existence that brought upon these genres. There's a history and a dark history associated with so much of it, and people don't know. They're just like, yeah, they want to go listen to Lil Pump or something because that's still rap music, but is it really Black music anymore? I mean, like it is in terms of the history, but the message is so lost now. And yeah, so there's that the question: do you think it's important for the youth to understand the history of all the music that they're listening to today?
I mean, I think, like I said, there's a difference between active listeners and passive listeners.
Mhm.
I mean, some people just want to shake their ass, basically. That's all they care about. And that's
If I
cool.
had one, I would shake it too.
I mean, with or without ass, if you want to shake it, cool. Like
That's a hit, right? That's a hit right there.
with or without. But I mean, I'm obviously the OG in this conversation, so my history is a bit different. I used to spit, back in the early '80s when hip hop was like brand new, and I remember vividly being in college, and my freshman year in college was the year that Michael Jackson dropped Thriller and Prince dropped 1999. And so as you went to people's dorm rooms, they had one of those albums or both of those albums. I had neither one of them because I've never been anybody who followed the crowd, but I was bumping Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five 24/7. The Message and listening to Africa Bambaataa, bumping that. And at the time, being in what would come to be known as hip hop, we were just calling it rap music. The way you spit is very different than the way people eventually would like rhyme, because it was more about getting the crowd hyped up, you know what I'm saying, pumping the music. And then around 87 or so, Rakim dropped, and Rakim came with this whole like poetic approach to lyricism. And the game changed there, and we could keep going and talk about other changes. So it's like, as you go along, having lived through all this, I mean, I've been listening to this music for the majority of my life. I've participated in the culture in numerous ways, and I still listen to it now. It hadn't changed. So I think, as a listener, I'm just remembering to, when hip hop first started, and my father was a much older man at that time. My father listened to jazz. And I remember he had like these Charlie Parker albums and Miles Davis albums. And I got to be real curious in that because it wasn't my era. And I didn't know it, and I couldn't listen to it on the radio or at parties. It wasn't available. In order for me to listen to it, I had to find a way to listen to the music, listening to my father's albums, going to record stores, etc. So I think it's the same for anybody. It's just a different era. Like, what do you want the music to mean? If it's just something you're listening to when you're, riding around in your whip, or if you're at a club, or like, that's cool. But if you're really into the music, like that journey to find out the history of the music, it's a lot of fun. I mean, like, what is more fun than like learning music that you didn't know existed, or finding new artists that you really like dig. I mean, that's the beauty. I mean, music is a wonderful thing. So, you know, if people don't want to like pursue that, I guess that's on them. And, you know, it's kind of unfortunate because they're missing out. Like I said, there's been bullshit from the beginning. Like there's always going to be some bullshit music. There's always going to be some whack music and a lot of whack people. But then there are going to be people who push themselves beyond whatever is popping in the moment and strive to try and find out something deeper, because ultimately music can become the soundtrack of your life, but it's on you.